Fight Mike here. Today I'm going to be recapping UFC Vegas 111 Bonfim versus Brown, which was actually a very good card that just took place in the Apex today. There was all finishes on the main card and the prelims were alright with a couple of good fun wars of decisions and some good finishes as well. But let's jump in with the early prelim opener. We got Zachary Reese versus Jackson McVeigh. This was really fun and a really good way to jump off with the card because Jackson McVeigh straight away just jumped straight into the clinch. He was looking for a lot of elbows and knees in the clinch, and they were instantly in on like a phone booth fight. It was just up against the cage, and Zachary Reese is trying to respond with some body shots and landing over the top. It was no feeling out process from either of them. It was a good start from it, and I love it when the cards start like this. But Zachary Reese almost gets finished with one of those knees in the clinch, actually gets dropped, and Jackson McVeigh doesn't follow up accordingly. He goes back to the head with some elbows, I think it was, and then Zachary Reese was sort of able to recover, and they ended up back at range, and Reese started actually tagging Jackson McVeigh at range, and I think he knew, although coming in, he thought he was going to be better in the clinch, but it turned out he actually wasn't, and he knew he had to stay in that boxing range, and McVeigh got him back to the cage, beat him up for a little bit longer, but then nut-shotted Reese, and it gave Reese like a second to recompose, and upon that restart, McVeigh coming back forward, but Zachary Reese was able to get a takedown, I think, late into the round, and sort of like setting the scene for what the fight was going to look like. I think he saw how easy the takedown was on Jackson McVeigh, and then round two comes along, gets the takedown early, and was able to, I think, work straight around to the rear naked choke. It was a really good submission from Zachary Reese. McVeigh needs to work on the boxing and wrestling, like especially the takedown defense. It seemed really easy to topple him over. And in the boxing, he sort of looked like Patchy Mix out there. He wasn't moving his head at all. He was just throwing like blind kicks or just throwing like really not heavy looking punches. He is very good in the clinch though. He reminds me a little bit of Raoni Barcelos in the clinch, especially with those knees. And I think he could be a good fighter, but I feel like he's getting a jump up too quick. I don't think he was ready for the UFC when we signed him. But moving on to the next one, we've got Miles Johns versus Daniel Marcos. This was a good performance from Daniel Marcos. He was early, landing some knees. I think got an easy takedown on Miles Johns when he was swinging for an overhand. And then Miles was able to get up, I think, relatively quickly, but then stupidly for the rest of the round, he was just pushing for his own takedown when he really didn't need it, and that shouldn't have been his game plan. And he was like trying to out-clinch Daniel Marcos, and that's Daniel Marcos' game. Like, Daniel Marcos really doesn't have like a lot in his arsenal, but what he's good at, he's very good at. And one of the best things he's good at is using the clinch. And Miles Johns isn't known for his amazing clinch work. I mean, he's shorter than Volk, and he's probably not nearly as strong as Volk either in the grappling, so he's just not able to really push people against that cage and hold them there. But round two came around, and Miles Johns was instantly missing big. It looked like he knew that he couldn't just like out-clinch or out-grapple Daniel Marcos. And Marcos was sort of staying on the outside, landing like one shot at a time and just pressuring, waiting for an easy takedown, which was really effective for him. It is actually quite impressive how easy he's able to get some of those takedowns. Like, he's a slow twitch guy, and he takes a while to load into fights. But once he has that timing, he can really blast into a double leg, or he can land some good shots as you're coming in just through his timing. So he is one of those slow twitch guys that does build through the fights, and I do like that for him in the long run. It does bode well for some of these guys that make it towards the top. I think he will get ranked at some point, but after Marcos was pressuring for a little bit, he was able to, I think he was able to get the easy take. Yeah, he got the easy takedown, and then Johns, whilst he was trying to get back up, gave up the rear naked choke, and it was just a good performance, a clean one from Daniel Marcos. Didn't really take too much damage, worked his knees to the body quite well. And Miles Johns just doesn't adjust much. He's winging shots constantly, and he was leaving too many easy takedowns for Marcos each time. But good performance from Marcos. I like that from him. Moving on to the next one, we've got Tisha Pennington versus Denise Gomez. Denise easily won this fight. It was a 30-27 in my books. She was outstriking Tisha Pennington in all the rounds, and she had the bigger moments in every single one of the rounds. Denise was sharper, and she was faster than Pennington. It looked like genetically, even if they were technically on a similar level, genetically Denise is better, and she may be in a little bit better shape as well. Maybe some better decision making as well. But she is better than Tisha Pennington. And Pennington suffered a similar problem she's had throughout her entire career, which she just seems too small for the division, which is crazy because it's 115, and she just doesn't seem to do enough damage to her opponents. And Denise Gomez had all of the ooh and ah moments and was able to get the decision easily over Tisha Pennington. Moving on to the next one, we've got Josh Hokett versus Max Jimenez. This was a great KO win from Josh Hokett. Not a massive fan of the mic work that he does after he was stealing a couple of Chael Sonnen's lines, but I'm all for it. I'm happy to hear it. I'm happier to hear that than someone just saying, oh, just give me my next opponent. Like, I'll take on whoever. I need someone to call people out. I do like that Hokett did. But Hokett looked great in this fight. He started really fast, much faster than Jimenez. You could see it straight away. He was leaping in with that, it was like a flying 1-2 almost. Like, he was literally jumping in. It was sort of like how Tom Aspinall jumps in with his 1-2. And he was just getting Jimenez constantly on the back foot. And then the second good shot that Josh Hokett landed, I think it was like a minute into the round, just put Jimenez straight to the ground. And Hokett was just setting off a barrage, landing hooks as Jimenez got back up and put him out with a massive hook over the top. It was a great performance from Josh Hokett. And for heavyweight, I'm happy to see it. I like seeing these guys that are fast-handed. He's shown good wrestling in the past. He's actually a good prospect, and he's not that big. He's like a DC-sized heavyweight that's a little bit taller, and I'm happy to see it. Moving on to the next one, we've got Mayra Bueno Silva versus Jacqueline Cavalcanti. This was a good performance from Cavalcanti. I thought she was good after her last fight. Can't remember who her opponent was on, but I'm pretty sure it was the Vittori versus the Lidze card, or it was the Cat versus... I think it was the Cat one, actually, where he eye poked Asuel Mabea, but... It was a good performance from Jacqueline Cavalcanti, and I'm not going to lie, it looks like Bueno Silva has really regressed. She doesn't look like she wants to be out there as much anymore. She used to get tired early, yes, but she would still be pushing the pace, trying to do something in the fight. She didn't look like she was trying to harm Jacqueline Cavalcanti after the first round in this one. And it looked like she was really hesitant, a lot more hesitant than usual coming forward. And Jacqueline Cavalcanti was just able to outstrike her at range all 3 rounds. Again, I thought it was. She was putting all the damage on Bueno Silva, and it looks like Bueno Silva is marking a lot more easily, especially after the Macy Chasson loss, where she got that gigantic cut. And she just seems a little bit more timid. And Jacqueline, she's a long, lengthy striker. She's got good striking for the women's bantamweight division. She's a lot faster than a lot of these girls. So she had a very good performance here against Maria Bueno Silva. Moving on to the next one, we've got Raoni Barcelos versus Ricky Simone. This was a good performance from Raoni Barcelos. I was thinking, did Raoni age 10 years since his last fight? I was really confused by that. He was, look at this photo here. I think this is his very last fight. He looked way older than this, but good performance from Raoni. He was able to deal with Ricky Simone, who gave him some problems, especially early. Ricky early was looking for the overhands and catching Raoni with some shots over the top. He even had him in some trouble up against the cage with some hooks, and it almost looked like it dropped Barcelos and definitely rocked him for a moment. And Ricky also looked for some takedowns in the round. I think he got one and then got one stuffed, but Raoni looked slick in this one. He was early on, even if he was getting outstruck, he was still landing a lot. He was landing his counter uppercut. It looked really clean. He was doing some wrestling late in the round back to Ricky Simone. And then round 2, he was able to slow the pace down on Ricky. He was landing some nice jabs and some nice straights, really picking apart Ricky Simone at range. And Raoni was really just outcrafting Ricky Simone in the round 2 and 3. He was landing much more jabs, straight shots, body shots. I thought it was a clear 2-1. A lot of people thought that Ricky Simone won this one, but he was defending with his high guard really well. And even if he moves slow, he doesn't really slow down. So Ricky Simone in those last 2 rounds looked a little bit less of himself than he did in the first, whereas Raoni was sort of on the up the entire time and putting more and more pressure on Ricky Simone as the fight went on, getting his own takedowns. He looked really good. I think Raoni is quite underrated, and I don't know why Peyton Talbot's getting the ranking shot when Raoni beat him at the start of the year. And he's on a 3-fight winning streak. Peyton won 1. Don't know what that's for, but Moving on to the next one, we've got Hyder and Mill versus Jamal Emmers. This was a pretty decent performance from Jamal Emmers. It wasn't a very fun fight in the last round or 2 rounds or so. Not on Jamal Emmers' side, just because Hyder wasn't really giving much resistance. But round 1, Emmers was just tagging Hyder and Mill so early. He was going for some takedowns, which, granted, Hyder and Mill was getting up from very quickly. But Hyder was pressing, but he was getting hit with a lot of big shots whilst he was overthrowing a lot of shots. And Emmers wasn't using as much energy, and he was landing some slick hooks on the back foot, and he was catching Hyder a couple of times really hard and got a couple more takedowns towards the end of the round. He was really not pressuring, but he was making Hyder work for everything that he was getting. And in round 2, you could even see it. Hyder Emil looked so tired. He was swinging really hard. He didn't really look like he was fully in it. And then Emmers was able to stay composed, counter a little bit more, and get an easy takedown in that second round. And he was finally able to hold Hyder Emil down. He really did go for a few takedowns in the first 7 minutes of the fight. But Hyder Emil just was getting gassed out way too easily and quickly. And by the 7-minute mark, he was just staying on the bottom like a fish out of water. And round 3, Hyder Emil came out trying to swing, got taken down instantly again, and Emmers controlled the entire round. He was threatening some arm triangle submissions and going for mount as well. And then Hyder at points looked like he was literally dying on the ground, grasping for air. It literally looked like Chris Barnett on the ground the other day. So not a good look for Hyder Emil, especially when people were hyping him up so much after the William Gomez win. And then to get smoked by Jose Delgado and then get out-mogged and out-marauded by Jamal Emmers, it's not a good look, and it's definitely going to chip away at his confidence. So interested to see how he comes back after that loss. Moving on to the next one, though, I thought this, don't know why I said short this, but I thought this should have been the co-main event. It was Christian Leroy Duncan versus Marco Tulio. I honestly think that this could have been the highest level skill fight on the card. These guys looked really good out there. Even if Marco Tulio lost and he did get dominated in parts of it, he did still show a high level. And Duncan's a weird guy to fight. Straight away, Duncan's just pushing the pace. He's got the really weird style. It's sort of like a Yuri Prohaska style where he's moving around with this weird footwork. He's lulling you into like a false sense of security and then jumping in with a flying knee, or he's just pressuring you unrelenting, throwing like a straight right hand and then switching stances, coming in with a lead hook and then a back fist. Like, he's just got a really odd style. He's dipping either side. He's switching stances constantly. It's a very, very odd style, but I do think it's quite effective for him. And then like 40 seconds into the fight, after Duncan's just pushing Tulio back, he lands a perfect spinning elbow straight on the eyebrow of Marco Tulio. It was sort of in between the two eyebrows on the forehead. And it just left a massive lump. And you could see instantly that it was probably a little bit rocked from that. And he straight away grabbed the clinch. I'm surprised he didn't get dropped by it. It was a massive shot. And I think he was feeling a little bit the speed and the power of Christian Leroy Duncan and the pressure as well, because he was getting pushed back constantly that first part. And then Duncan gets held up against the clinch for about like 2 minutes or like a minute or so, and then Duncan's able to get back out of it, gets back on the pressure. I think he throws a couple of shots, lands a couple of them hard, goes for a spinning wheel kick, gets taken down again. But he hits a really nice switch on Marco Tulio, and he gets the control to side control and then moves around to the back as Marco Tulio tries to get up. Shows some really slick grappling out there. After doing something like stupid, it was like a Gene Silva versus Diego Lopez moment, but he was able to get the perfect switch on him, and it was a very athletic switch. Did it very quickly, slipped out around the back, and it was a very, very good move there from CLD. I think he is a real prospect for the future. I think Tulio still is even after this. But round 2, Tulio looked a little bit better early. He was landing some good leg kicks, working in the clinch. He looked very sharp. He cut Leroy Duncan over the eye and then just went back to the clinch. I think he should have stayed with the striking with Leroy Duncan and maybe gone to some more leg kicks, tried to stay at range, try and like pivot off to the side and counter when he can. But when it looked like Tulio was taking over, Duncan just spinning back fisted him off a leg kick, and it was just a beautiful shot. And He did it just before that and it didn't work, but this time he just did it as a reaction to getting leg kicked, and it was absolutely perfect. Rocks Tulio, gets him jelly-legged, and the very next exchange, he just KOs him with an offbeat 1-2, lands one more follow-up shot, sleeps Tulio out cold, and it was just a great performance from Christian Leroy Duncan. I've not seen him look that good, and it was against a very good opponent. I want to see CLD against a ranked guy very badly. I don't care if he just lost to Gregory Rodriguez. Maybe we see what happens with Kopylov Rodriguez. If Rodriguez loses that, maybe give him Kopylov, but very, very good performance from Christian Leroy Duncan there. He's a star in the making if he can keep improving as much. He needs to stop with so much spinning stuff, though. Like, do you not agree? Like, he could be so incredible, and I think he could be beating these guys in like a matter of minutes, but he hinders himself by doing all of these crazy techniques. He doesn't need to. There's no need for him to do that at all. So I would like to see him slow down with it a little bit. Use it when he can see it's open. And then do some more variation. Like literally, if he can, train with Yuri. Like, learn some of the tricks of the trade with this. Like, he's got good head movement. He's still getting caught too much, though. I think there's still a lot of room for CLD to grow. I think a really powerful guy, even a guy like Cannonier, I could see punishing him. Especially over 5 rounds, especially as he gets up the rankings. I could see a Pyfer being a problem with him, but that's a 50-50 matchup, honestly, to me, because he's got the grappling to match Pyfer, and they could gas each other out. These guys like Pyfer, CLD, Marco Tulio, maybe not Kopylov, he's a little bit old for that now. Maybe Gregory Rodriguez, he's still a little bit weathered as well. But these guys are the new age of middleweight, and they're looking very good. So I'm excited to see. Mastodon Mavov, he's very high ranking, and I think he's like 29. But the Mavovs is where I see CLD's limit 100% getting tested. He's going to get chinned by that sort of opponent at the moment. He needs some improvement. But let's move on to the next one. We've got Chris Padilla versus Ishmael Bonfim. This was a disaster for Bonfim. Early, he was doing quite well. He was very explosive, and Padilla did look like the slower guy early. He had good defense, though, but he was getting caught a lot. But like halfway through the first round, started landing the straight, doing some nice leg kicks and some teeps to the body. I think he did some hooks to the body as well. Using some time in the clinch, it was about 2 or 3 minutes. It was quite boring at the end of that first round, landing some knees to the thigh, marabbing it up out there. But round 2, Bonfim came out fast again, using a really good hook adjustment of trying to come around the guard of Chris Padilla. And he was doing it very successfully, but you could see after a bit that the explosiveness was really wearing out on Ishmael Bonfim. And you could see Padilla seeing that. And I think he landed a nut shot on Padilla, and Padilla sort of like waved it off, and he was like really pushing back on the pressure, and he instantly landed some body shots back and forced a bad takedown out of Bonfim, and it pushed Bonfim off onto the back foot. And once Padilla could get Bonfim on the back foot and pressure himself, he just started clinching him up against the cage, landing knees to the face, dropped him, and I think Bonfim went for a leg lock after he'd got dropped, and Padilla just went straight in for the ground and pound. He did some really crafty ground and pound to the body, landing some really nice straight to the solar plexus, aiming for that intentionally. I love to see it. And when he went to the head, Ishmael Bonfim tried to roll over, get out of it, but he ended up just staying in the same position, and Padilla was able to pound himself into a second round TKO victory. I think it was in the last 30 seconds. It was a great win from Chris Padilla there. Good underdog as well. I think he's coming on to 4 wins in the lightweight division, and if he's not getting a ranked opponent next, I'd like to see him fight like a Quillan Salkild or someone of that sort of stature, because he's actually a good prospect. He has an ugly record. It's something like 15 or 16-9, but he's a very good prospect. 4-fight winning streak against good, sneaky opposition. Like Bonfim, he got Rongzhu. He's got some others I can't remember the names of, but he's a good prospect out there, and he's got really nice Muay Thai to watch. But moving on to the feature fight of this card, we have Muslim Salikov versus Uros Medic. Now, I'm going to be probably hated for saying this, but I'm not actually saying anything. I'm not accusing anyone of anything, but in light of the recent scandals we've been having in the UFC, if this was a week before, I'm probably saying Muslim Salikov's getting this, like, he might have rigged this one, but I'm not making an accusation at all, but it was just a bad finish for Muslim Salikov. And to be honest, I really don't think it is rigged. It's just how Salikov gets finished sometimes. Like, he either finishes you early, tit for tat out strikes you in a karate matchup, or he gets finished very early into a fight. And I honestly think Uros was always going to get this one done. Muslim Salikov struggles with guys who are good with the boxing, especially with range. And in hindsight, he was always going to beat Carlos Leal. Leal comes in with his hands at his waist. And against Renat Fikretinov, he's not that powerful. And even if somehow Renat Fikretinov knocks out Andreas Gustafsson in a similar fashion to this one, but even though he can do that, he's also not that powerful. So it was sort of clear that Muslim Salikov was going to KO him, but he struggled with range in the past. He got finished by Randy Brown very easily, and I think Medic is sort of like a bit of a Randy Brown. He's got very good boxing. He's got a nice jab. Bit of a questionable chin, which some could say is the same with Randy Brown, but he's got very good boxing, and he's tagged Muslim Salikov in like a minute 20 into the fight with a nice straight, and Salikov gets sort of knocked off balance. I don't even think he got really dropped. It looked like he was still looking at Uros Medic as he was going down. Covers up instantly, tries to roll to his back, and then Uros lands one follow-up shot, and Muslim just stopped scrambling from there and sort of just covered up, and I don't want to say quit, but he quit. It wasn't a good performance from Salikov, but sometimes you got to expect it. He's 41 or 42 years old. He's coming up to the twilight of his career. I'm sure he's kind of thinking, let me get this highlight reel KO and collect my check or not take too much damage. But Uros Medic looks really good out there, and he's sort of like Jason Statham, but like 6'1", and I'm loving to see it. Let's move on to the co-main event of this one. We've got Matt Schnell versus Joseph Moraes. This was a very easy win for Joseph Moraes. I think that this would have been a very easy pick for anyone who picked him. Schnell's best weapon is like, he can randomly be good on the feet. He can randomly be somewhat technical, but he's not durable, so it's risky for him to be there. Or he can randomly do a clinic in grappling if you have no idea what you're doing. Joseph's a good prospect in his own right. He was able to he got taken down very early by Matt Schnell, but he used his butterfly hooks very well, got the reversal, got back on top, threatened a Kimura on Matt Schnell, and then goes to a backside crucifix. I thought he could have done some of that ground and pound there, but we didn't get to see it. That would have been a really nice throwback to UFC 5 or 6, whichever one it was. But once Schnell got out of that backside crucifix, Moraes instantly got a guillotine because Schnell tried to work back into guard, and it was a very good performance from Joseph Moraes. And I think he's a good prospect to watch. He's got very good scrambles. I want to see him up against someone who can scramble so I can see how good they are and just test his striking out. I want to see him against Jesus Aguilar. I feel like that would be a very fun fight, and I hope they make that next, to be honest. Aguilar didn't fight that long ago. It was in September or so on that Noche card, so I think it's the perfect fight to make. But let's move on to the main event, though. We've got Gabriel Bonfim versus Randy Brown. Look, I'm a massive Randy Brown enjoyer, but this was a bad performance, and Bonfim had a fantastic one. I hate on Bonfim just because I love Stephen Thompson. I still think Stephen Thompson beat Bonfim, and I don't think Bonfim's all that, but he is showing improvement, so maybe I am just hating for no reason, but it was and the thing is, Bonfim's only loss is Nicholas Dalby if you're counting the Stephen Thompson one as a win, and Nicholas Dalby's crafty, he's very good, and he's actually very tricky, and let's say Randy Brown doesn't land out on the nose, I'm saying if, maybe he's able to win that fight, but it was a good performance from Bonfim against Randy Brown here. He was outstriking Randy Brown early, which I don't think anyone expected, with leg kicks, and he was jabbing with Brown, out-jabbing him at points as well, and just kicking his legs in between everything, and Brown just couldn't check. No check at all. It felt like probably 22 leg kicks in the first round. It felt like that was all Bonfim was doing. No checks. Don't know what Randy Brown was thinking with that, but Brown wasn't checking any of it. And he was falling short with his jab, and he was getting leg kicked every time. And none of the times he thought should have thrown a straight after it. I was thinking the entire time, okay, Brown's going to read that he's getting leg kicks this entire time. When he throws the jab, he's basically going to throw a 2 with it. Bring it with the jab so it can catch when the leg kick's coming. And He just didn't make the adjustment, kept jabbing, kept getting leg kicked, would throw some meaty hooks every now and then, but his leg got really beat up so badly that he couldn't move that well with his punches. He was just beaten straight away, and Bonfim was able to go back to the leg. Round 2 started. Brown actually looked a little bit better in round 2, and he looked like he was getting back into it, but Bonfim went back to the leg kicks at about like a minute into the round, and Randy just started getting caught straight after then. I think he knew his leg was done. It looked so swollen. You could tell Joe Rogan was loving this fight at home. It's in the Apex. He loves the Apex. We've heard all about that. And all those beautiful leg kicks. They were really nice leg kicks. May I say Jack Jenkins-esque, but Randy was getting caught with some nice overhands over the top by Gabriel Bonfim now that Randy's leg was cooked, and some nice hooks in the pocket as well when Randy was trying to throw in there with his meaty hooks. And since the leg was gone of Randy Brown, Bonfim was able to catch it much easier and just take him off balance with shots, and everything that Randy Brown was getting caught with, it was on like one leg or he was just off balance just because of the leg. And it was like a couple of exchanges after they were hand fighting, and it looks like Bonfim was finding his range back again, and he just caught Randy Brown with a beautiful knee in the clinch, finishing him. And Mark Smith immediately stopped it. I do agree with the stoppage. When someone smacks their head on the canvas, I think it's always a stoppage, just because it looked like for the first 2-3 seconds, it looked like he was just out on the canvas. And at that point, it's over. Even if he wakes up a quarter of a second later, if someone smacks their head on the canvas and they're like out for even a second, I think it's over. Because all that's going to happen is you let it keep going. Bonfim lands like 4 more juices, knocks him out really badly. So I'm happy with the stoppage. Good win for Gabriel Bonfim, and I'm excited to see what he does next. I bet they'll give him Gilbert Burns, though. I can really see that. Let me know what you think of the card in the comment section below. Finally, we're back to a pay-per-view at UFC 322 this week. I'm going to be doing like the JDM versus Islam on probably Tuesday. I'll do the fight separately to the full card predictions. I'll go over some other stuff in the predictions for the main event anyway, but I'll do the full card predictions probably on like Wednesday or so. But let me know if you enjoyed the video, and I'll catch you next time. Peace.